Hello everyone, we're here to talk about top tools. So top tools and spring pullers and bottom tools and just anything you can put under your press or power hammer or hand strike to manipulate material. The reason you'd want to do that is to be more precise in where you want to forge. Say you want to do a shoulder or you want to flatten something out at an angle, texture or something, or do like a half round. Anyways, there's all kinds of potential and possibilities. The nice thing about it is you don't need specific dies for your power hammer or press. You just need a big flat surface, and then you can put in whatever you need to manipulate your material. So here we've got a smorgasbord. We've got flatters here. So we got like a half round. This is obnoxious, oversized one. You can see, so if you're drawing out a taper on something, you can lay that on the taper and that automatically accounts for that angle. And then, because it's radiused at the top, it can just adjust to that. So having like custom dies for a specific taper would be a pain in the neck, and that taper is gonna always be changing. So something like this is really handy for that. And we've got shouldering tools. So right here, if you want to forge in a little step down, you've got this little bit of a radius here, and you can isolate material with that. So yeah, and then we've got the cheese wedge, which is another top tool that I designed. So this one is another isolator, but then also you can use it as a fuller. So here we've got tong mounted tooling. This is great for hand striking. I wouldn't necessarily use this under a press or power hammer. So that brings up a good point of, you know, what to use under what power. Like if you take this handle, for example, it's really thin and flexy. With a power hammer, when you're top tooling, if this isn't perfectly flat and perpendicular with the ram, the top die, it's gonna kick, and all that force is going right into your shoulder. And especially if it's real bad, it'll go kick one way and then it hits it again and kicks it the other way and can really mess with you. So that's why I have these shock absorbing handles, something, you know, a little bit beefier, because this is heavier. I've got a beefy handle on it, but with something like that, I'd prefer to use this in a press, because a press, it doesn't have that slamming action. It's just a slower force. So this will just kind of automatically auto level and not kick you, jerk you around. So I like to generally have some nice thin handles, which also these tools we've got that Kurt Fehrenbach made, I noticed that he has a shorter handle on it. So it also makes sense to where that jerking action, if you have a 3 foot long handle on it, this moving, you know, a quarter of an inch turns into 3/4 of an inch out further. So it's just more controlled. You just don't want to be way in the danger zone near the moving, smashing bits, but you know, a little bit stubbier handle, you're using less material and you're not getting jerked around quite so bad. You got a little more control over it. So there's different schools of thought and different processes for that. A lot of this stuff is welded on, just mild steel handles. Material for the top tools, you know, you can, depending on what you're doing, you may want 4140, even unheat treated or hardened 4140 that you can buy that's 30 Rockwell that you can still machine and cut fine, but it's gonna hold up pretty good. That's a good option. Like flatters, this is just mild steel. All it's doing is flattening stuff. There's no fuller action or cutting action happening on, so you don't really need hardened material. But in general, you don't want it super hard anyways, because you want it softer than your die faces, because you'd rather gum up your top tools rather than your dies for your power hammer or your press. And you don't want them both super hard, because then you're stuck between a rock and a hard place, and then you get shrapnel and explosions, and that's worst case. You want to avoid that. So yeah, we've got hand striking, we've got knot hammers. A lot of people we'll grab this and start hammering with it. This is not wedged in. This is just a tapered fit to where you can swap out handles quickly if it breaks, or that little bit of wiggle room is not transferring that shock into the handle. We've got a punch here that's also just press fit on here. This is a normal hammer handle that's split, but it's not wedged, so it's not holding it as well because it's got that little more flex to it with that split. But also you want your striking surface soft, so this is starting to mushroom over. It's not started to crack yet, which if it's starting to crack, stop what you're doing, dress that, grind it down. You want it a nice round. I half did this just to show the comparison of mushroomed and dressed. So you want a nice smooth radius, not rolled over anymore. So that's good maintenance for your tools, which also with the handle slipping off, it's real easy to just yank this off and be able to dress it and not be having this cumbersome handle in your way. Now let's talk about spring fullers. So we've got all these top tools. Now we've got top and bottom going a war on two fronts. So this got bent. I'll have to fix that. But anyways, we've got a pair of fullers so you can isolate material from top and bottom. Generally with spring fullers, you kind of have a range that you want them set to. So you'd want the springs parallel where you want your thickness set at. If you're doing some big stock, you'd want these resting further apart. So then also you don't have to yank them apart to get it fit in there. You want it kind of that mid-range, the size where you're working on, which you can always, tweak it and adjust it, but you kind of want them set to where you're going, which these ones are thinner stock. This is 8x1. This is nice and flexy. A lot of times too, back at the old shop I worked at, we would do another piece of stock bent around as a guide to keep it oriented and in line with itself that way. So that's helpful as well for getting a little precision to it. Then we've got bottom tools. So we've got our little side step for making tongs. So this is to shoulder your material for tongs, and you've got a thicker spot there as a kiss block so that you control your thicknesses. So you can have these varying sizes for your different size tongs. Lots of ways to work on material and accomplish some goals. So today I gotta make some more cheese wedges. Here's a finished one. I went ahead, when I bought the stock, this is 4140. I bought 2 foot of 2-inch square. So I just went and cut it all at a 10-degree angle and just rotated it 180 every cut. So we've got a wedge, blank, and then I just have to grind in some radiuses to it. And then with the handle here, I've got some 3/16 hex stock just because we've got a bunch of it here, scrap material. I flatten out the 2 sides and then bend it around, twist it up. So you have a nice springy handle. It has some nice flex to it, but it's also, holds its shape. It's not just drooping down. It's not too thin, but it's a nice Goldilocks zone of a handle. So yeah, we'll twist up the handle, then preheat and weld it on there, clean up the little tack welds holding it together, and then I get these sent out to our professional heat treater, Brandon, and then it comes back lovely black oxide and the right hardness. I think I had him do these at 45 Rockwell, you know, not soft, not too hard, a nice little decent in-between zone for a top tool to hold up well and not damage your die faces. But yeah, let's have some fun.